And what I find so interesting is like when you started your example on the tropical beach and my brain body, I'm like, oh yeah, I love the beach. I can smell it and I can feel it right now. And then all of a sudden there's a cobra. My body's like, ah, the same reaction.
Yes.
Trauma isn't just an event. It's a lifelong conversation between your brain, your body, and the environment. And here's the staggering truth. Studies show that people with a history of early childhood trauma, especially sexual trauma, can carry that imprint into their immune system and emotional health, literally in their cells. But here's the good news. The brain is plastic and healing is possible. Today, we're honored to sit down with Dr. Mbemba Jabbi, a leading clinical neuroscientist at Dell Medical School. Dr. Jabbi's groundbreaking work bridges neurogenetics, brain imaging, and effective neuroscience, helping us understand how genes, brain circuits, and trauma shape our emotional lives and how we can heal. Welcome to Trauma Rewired, the podcast that teaches you about your nervous system, how trauma lives in the body, and what you can do to heal. I'm your co-host, Jennifer Wallace. I'm a neurosomatic psychedelic preparation and integration guide.
And I'm your co-host, Elizabeth Kristoff, founder of BrainBase.com, an online community where we use applied neurology and somatics to create resilience, capacity, and personal growth. And I'm also the founder of the Neurosomatic Intelligence Coaching Certification.
For example, there are different types of emotions, as you all know. But let's say, we are, on a tropical beach doing this conversation, and a cobra comes in, really rushing at us, right? That's very visual, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, the eye will see it and track it to the retina of any normal functioning person with acute vision. So that tracks through the visual pathway into the visual cortex, the primary visual cortex, which really we see that it's a black snake, and it's probably a cobra because it connects to our memory system. And when it's black and it's flattening its head out and it's menacing, it's a cobra, for example, right? So what do we do? At that moment, there is an emotional trigger. That all of the context that we are seeing, it's not rubber, it's real, it's coming at us, and it's dangerous. If it bites, it may be too late before the antivenom comes, and we want to be around to see the next day. Let's run. And instead of getting up and going here and thinking, oh, let me take my bag and let me take my computer, I'll just be jumping all over, right? We may even hit each other. And that's a typical, flight response. So the emotion of fear and coding what's coming in. So getting back, so we started with the eye, the visual cortex, and then there is a secondary pathway that doesn't even go to the visual cortex, that goes, into the amygdala or even brainstem areas, what we call superior colliculus. Mm-hmm. So depending on the intensity of the emotion and also the survival value of it or the negative survival value of it, we are hardwired to jump into action. And it could also be positive. So instead of running away, we are seeking more of it. I don't know if that explains it.
It does. And what I find so interesting is like when you started your example on the tropical beach and my brain body, I'm like, oh yeah, I love the beach. I can smell it and I can feel it right now. And then all of a sudden there's a cobra. My body's like, ah, the same reaction.
Yeah, so
I've gone on an emotional journey.
Right.
In the example.
So it's interesting that you said your body, right? Mm-hmm. But obviously the central player here is the brain. So for example, all of these examples that we spoke about are visual sensory. Mm-hmm. So there is a school of thought that says that the eye is just an external, sort of a camera, but an external view of the brain. And the retina is where the brain starts. So it's actually a part of the brain. Mm-hmm. So it's the brain really coding all of this. But obviously, whatever the brain is doing is meaningless if it's not taking it back to the body. So from the eye to the retina, getting back to your question, to the visual pathway, to the primitive secondary visual sensory pathway, which is the superior colliculus and the amygdala, they go straight to the motor cortex. or the how do you call it again? The feeling of your hair rising to the insula, and then run for it. But they also go to the primary visual cortex that really gets to the memory, take its time. So before you process all of it, you will have to be also running to avoid that. And then the motor cortex is so important in that it will be the one that's fully charging the rest of your muscles and extremities to do the work in terms of saving the body away from harm. But it could also be just imagined, right?
And still lighting up.
Emotion
And
is
still
not real,
feeling it.
but you may not run, but you still very much get tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things we teach in NSI is like your eyes see, but your brain is where vision happens.
Right.
Make sure to subscribe to this episode on our audio platforms or hit the little bell on YouTube to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode, because we have lots of exciting conversations coming up, breaking down the science and the trauma of emotional health and nervous system resilience.